In its latest health emergency updates around the globe, the World Health Organization expresses concern over the humanitarian situation in Tigray, the rising cases of Ebola outbreak in Uganda, and the prevalent effects of climate change. The WHO boss said that the crisis in Tigray remains catastrophic, as this week marks 2 years since the siege of Ukraine region began. And details of that in this report by Yahya Jammeh.
The World Health Organization says it's concerned about the increasing number of Ebola cases in Uganda, climate change, which is fueling cholera outbreaks, and the humanitarian crisis looming in Tigray, where the Ethiopian region has been locked in a 2-year conflict with the federal government in Addis Ababa. The Tigray conflict is one of the world's worst ongoing conflicts, but it's been largely ignored as international attention is fixed on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The severe humanitarian crisis unfolding since November 2020 has left more than 5 million people facing starvation, according to the World Food Programme. WHO boss Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said that the regions of Afar and Amhara are also affected by the conflict. Dr. Tedros described the siege in the region as the worst humanitarian crisis in the world.
However, the humanitarian situation in Tigray remains catastrophic. As I have said before, the siege of 6 million people by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces is the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Since the beginning of the siege, food, medicine, and other basic services have been weaponized. It has now been more than 2 months since the last humanitarian aid reached Tigray. But even before that, the aid reaching Tigray was a trickle, nowhere near enough to meet the needs. WHO continues to call for unfettered humanitarian access for the millions of people who are in dire need. And we continue to call on the international community to give the crisis in Tigray the right attention. The only solution to the situation remains peace. And we hope that the talks now taking place in South Africa will lead to a peaceful and enduring resolution.
On the Ebola outbreak in Uganda, Tedros said there are now 130 confirmed cases, 21 probable cases, 43 confirmed deaths, and 21 probable deaths. He added that Mubende remains the most affected district. However, cases have recently increased in 2 neighboring districts and 17 cases have been confirmed in Kampala. WHO continues to work closely with the government of Uganda and its partners to respond to the outbreak and urges a strengthened global response and increased donor investment. To support the response, WHO on Tuesday released an additional $5.7 million from its contingency fund for emergencies, in addition to an earlier $5 million it released previously. Also addressing journalists on Ebola, Dr. Ibrahima Sose Fall, Assistant Director General of WHO's Emergency Response, acknowledged the Ugandan government's leadership in scaling up the responses.
If you look at some indicator like the average from onset of symptom in the community to isolation is around 5 days. We need to make sure that this is reduced. And one of the important points is to make sure that we are not missing any probable cases, and all actions that need to be taken around the probable cases are taken. This will help to control all transmission chains. So positive improvement, positive development, but we need to make sure that we continue until we know that all the transmission chains are identified and stopped.
While poverty and conflict are major triggers of cholera, climate change is a growing threat. WHO said climate change presents an additional layer of complexity and creates the conditions for cholera outbreaks to explode. This also is reiterated by the WHO chief, Dr. Tedros.
Around the world, climate change is fueling outbreaks of cholera and dengue and increasing the risks of new pathogens emerging with epidemic and pandemic potential. Climate change exacerbates disease and malnutrition, which have a compounding effect. Sick people are more likely to be malnourished, and malnourished people are more likely to get sick and die. The climate crisis is a health crisis.
Temperature, salinity, rainfall, and plankton have proven to be important factors in the ecology of cholera, influencing the transmission of the disease in those regions of the world where the human population relies on untreated water as a source of drinking water. Cholera is an extremely serious disease that can cause severe acute watery diarrhea with severe dehydration. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Yahya Jammeh.